Welcome to Face to Face, connecting theater makers to the public, a program from the Legacy Theater and socialdistancetheater.org. I am so thrilled to be sharing with you today one of my favorite persons on the planet. This is Mariah Sage. She is a professional actress extraordinaire with so much depth and sensitivity and creativity in her work. And she is also a very good director and an excellent teaching coach for actors as well. So Mariah, can you tell us a little bit about your background? What in the world brought you to the world of acting, and how old were you when you remember your first kind of falling in love with being on stage and that whole scenario?
Yes, well, thank you so much for having me today. It's so fun to talk with you, and thank you for that lovely introduction. I started acting very early. I think I knew that I wanted to be an actor when I was about 8. So it was one of those school plays, Ghost of Christmas Past, Christmas Carol. And I think what I loved about it so much from such an early age is I was a pretty shy kid, and I was always, I don't know, I had a lot of anxiety, I remember, at that age about just what to say. And I looked at other kids interacting, and I just never felt like, I just felt like I was missing something. And when I started acting, and someone, that teacher trusted me with that role and gave me that opportunity, put that script in my hand, I just felt like it was a watershed moment. I just felt like, oh my goodness, all of a sudden there's all this fabulous stuff to say, and I get to interpret it any way I want. I get to have fun with it, and acting immediately became this incredible creative outlet for me. And so from that first production, I remember feeling like, this is it. This is magic. This is the most fun that I've ever had. And I just want to keep doing it. And I did. And I, growing up in Texas, the speech competitions were a really big deal, and going to compete in those, and then through high school, and then going off to study at NYU to School of the Arts to get my BFA in acting there. And then I really never stopped since.
When you imagined your life as an actress when you were 8 and beyond, kind of getting the lay of the land, what did you imagine, and how similar or different is it from where you have found your path where you're thriving now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something I really, encourage my students to think about when I'm working with younger people, or just people at various stages of their career too, right? Just to keep checking in with yourself and evaluating your goals, and really thinking about how you want acting or theater or creativity to be a part of your life, and realizing that it's totally fine if that continues to change. That's what makes life interesting. So when I was very young, I just knew that I wanted to keep acting. I mean, it was just, I love this. I want to keep doing this. This is fabulous. And I remember when I grew up and I was a teenager, I started to get really interested in films. I think that's like most kids, but I remember being, quite young and being very drawn to very serious, very, very adult, kind of subject matter, probably a little bit more substantial than kids my age. So kind of holding myself up in that dark room and being riveted by Jodie Foster, as she was someone that just thought she was just phenomenal in all of her early work and beyond. So I just knew I wanted to keep doing it. And then I think even when I was at NYU, and I was in a conservatory program, and I was having the opportunity to, to really, for many hours every day, act and train my body and movement and voice and speech. I certainly knew I wanted to keep acting, but I had some really important classes also at NYU that kind of lit the fire in me about, what am I gonna do with my craft that I'm going to really feel, to me, I'm feeling like there's a lot of purpose behind it. So for me, I was getting the feeling that yes, there's a tremendous purpose in entertaining people, and going out there and doing plays, and maybe that there are people in the audience who are having a, that's setting off something in them, and maybe, rethinking the way that they're living their life and everything like that. But what I missed about that was I missed the connection. I was never necessarily getting to talk to that audience member about those connections. And I kind of realized that I was going to need that. I was going to need to look for opportunities, in addition to performing as an actor and doing plays in that format, that additionally I was going to have to find some way to use theater as a tool. And then I did that in one way. I worked for several years right after college. The good fortune, one of my first bosses was James Bundy. Who's now for many years, the artistic director of Yale School of Drama and the Yale Rep. But back then he was the artistic director of Great Lakes Theater Festival in Cleveland. And for several years I had a chance to work under him and his, a flagship program of that theater, where we would take scenes from classic plays and bring them into schools. This is grades K through 12. And we would spend the whole week acting the scene. So I was getting a chance to act, do that thing I love. But then a huge portion of it was then throwing the ball to the kids and saying, and really talking about the issues that were coming up when they were watching the plays. And so that gave me that opportunity to make those connections with them and then help them, make a connection to theater in a very personal way that they wouldn't necessarily have if they had just gone to see the play. So that kind of work, that one-on-one, has become a huge part of my career. So as far as your question about how did I envision it in my life, I knew acting was going to be a big part of my life. And then as I aged, I started to think about, yes, and so this is great, and what more can I do to use theater to make me feel fulfilled? And so what I'm doing now, I would say, is just what I want to be doing. And I feel very lucky to be able to do that, to have the opportunity at times to be acting and doing professional productions as an equity actor, with being inspired by great directors and great collaborators, and also to have the opportunity to be teaching and coaching actors and shepherding them or kind of guiding them on their path.
So you mentioned working under the great James Bundy, and I know you've had the wonderful fortune to work under Oscar Eustis as well. Can you tell us a bit about your experience in your graduate work and what led you to that?
Absolutely. Wow, two really incredible artists you just mentioned. They really are, and very unique leaders, really incredible people. Right, so I finished up at NYU, and then I spent a couple of years, initially I wasn't considering going to graduate school at all. I felt like I had a fabulous education at NYU, and I really wanted to get out and use the tools. And so I had right off the bat, I was able to work with a company that was based in Portland, Oregon. I got a wonderful opportunity to do a physical theater piece with them that actually took me to Germany for quite some time. So I was over there performing as a young American artist. And of course in Germany, that's like being a brain surgeon. So they were just, it was so exciting to be so revered for my craft. And then, as I said, I then came back to the States and got really involved with the actor teacher program. And at that point, after several years of working as an actor, I realized I had new goals. And so that's, I think, what happens. We go for a while, we use our tools, and then new goals emerge. And so I knew I was ready to start applying to graduate school for my MFA in acting, when I had the new goals of, first of all, there were a couple of things about my training and my craft that I really knew I wanted to work on. So while NYU had gotten me so far, of course, in college, we're still so young, and so much of our bodies and our instruments and our brains and everything are still developing. And so I knew that there were certain aspects of my craft that I needed to go and work to immerse myself in. For example, like voice and speech work and breathing and all of that relaxation while I'm acting. That was one of them. And then another one was I started loving teaching so much that the new goal emerged was that I wanted to be able to teach acting at the college level. And so in order to do that, I needed to get the terminal degree. And then I just started to find some MFA acting programs that just started to really excite me. And one of them was a program which the year that I auditioned for it was the very first year it ever existed. So we were the first crop to go through. And that's the one I ended up going to. And it was it's a consortium between Brown University and the Trinity Repertory Company, which is an outstanding year-round professional theater company made of a core group of artists that have been together for decades. And it's really one of the last great American theater companies in existence, really like that. There used to be tons of them, of course, you know, back in the day, but now there's very few left. And so the Trinity Rep in Providence is one of the few left. And so it was a really exciting program to get this Ivy League education and then to be taught by the core members of the Trinity Repertory Company. And at that time, Oscar Eustace was the artistic director, and this consortium, this training program was his baby. So while I was there, I had classes regularly with him. There was one in particular, one really remarkable class that still have to kind of pinch myself that I was in that room, but it was led by Oscar Eustace and Pulitzer Prize winning playwright Paula Vogel. So the two of them taught the class, and it was one class where all the MFA actors, directors, and playwrights took together. And it was a wonderful class that was actually about teaching collaboration, which is something that we have to do all the time as artists, but we're really taught how to do it. Acting training and directing and writing, it's all very compartmentalized and segregated. And so this was a really exciting opportunity to really examine those roles and then give you a chance to try and sometimes fail, but then learn from those mistakes and learn through that experience of developing those new plays together under Oscar and Paula's tutelage. Mm-hmm.
Now you've gone on to, and you continue to act professionally in all kinds of wonderful plays, and you also direct, but let's talk for a moment about your company, Present and Perform. All of the conversation leading up to this gives us a really good background as to where your experience is and how you're very qualified to have this company and to be very successful at it. Tell us about how long it's been going and the types of people you attract.
Sure. Well, you know, without even knowing I was going to start a professional training program where I'd be coaching actors of all levels, before I knew I was going to start Present and Perform, kind of the seeds of it really started after I got my MFA. I completed that training, and then I was fortunate to begin teaching at the college level at several different universities over the years in their acting programs around Connecticut. And you know, what I found during that time is, while I very much enjoyed, you know, what we often have to do, which is leading large groups of students that come from various backgrounds, oftentimes no experience in acting, and not necessarily much interest. We have to get them on board and get them excited and help them understand how acting training truly is life training, and that anyone's going to have to be a public speaker, no matter what job you go into. And so you might as well do something about the fact that it scares everybody. And if you can learn something about that, then the acting course is time well spent. As much as I do enjoy that, and I do, what I really love the most is when I do get that student who is curious and eager to learn about acting and has a really strong work ethic and demonstrates that and expresses goals similar to maybe that I had at that point. When I get that opportunity, initially was through my college teaching opportunities, I'd find those unique situations, and then having that opportunity to really delve deeply one-on-one with that student teaching them certain techniques that they can apply to their, for example, their monologue audition, or what are the strategies you can use to present yourself really well from the first moment you walk into an audition room? Things that you really need to do well in order to be a successful auditioner, but a lot of times aren't really covered necessarily in classes. And so it's these things that we expect young actors to be very good at doing, but we don't really pick it apart for them. And so what I found is, as a professor, I really loved having those opportunities to work one-on-one or in small groups. And I started doing that. And then I guess it was it's been about 7 years now, because my son's 8 and I think I was 1 when he was 1 when I started Present and Perform. That was the moment when I decided that in addition to the work that I was doing as a university professor, I really wanted to have a company where, people that weren't affiliated with my university, so students all over the state, and in some instances out of state, who are looking for a partner when they have a specific goal. For example, if they decide, you know what, I really want to get into a BFA program like NYU, and I'm going to have to go through that really rigorous audition process. Or now it's time for me to apply for MFA programs. Or maybe it has nothing to do with school. Maybe it's, you know what, I've got this audition. There's a wonderful role coming up for me in this play. And my auditions, I really love acting, but I haven't been getting the results I seek. Maybe I need to get a little bit of help. I really wanted to work with those people, on their journey to help them, get the results they're seeking. And so that's why I started Present and Perform. And it's been very exciting. I started a lot of really initially just, again, with those one-on-one special cases of people, having specific needs they're looking for. But then I started teaching adult acting classes, because there a lot of people in Connecticut were looking for really a high caliber, challenging acting class where in the New Haven area, where they wouldn't have to go into New York City, but that they could get some really specific tools and techniques that they could then begin applying to their practice. And
I understand during this time of this social life that you're Zooming as well, that you're continuing the classes, but doing them online.
Yeah.
So how would people find you? How would they, if someone's listening to this and they're interested in being a client of yours, what would they do?
Sure. So my website is www.presentandperform.com. And so you could visit my website, and through the website, you can contact me. Also, you could email me. My email is Mariah, so it's MARIAH @presentandperform.com. And yeah, I mean, right now, what I'm finding is a lot of actors are really wanting to keep working. They're wanting to keep working. Maybe they're thinking about when this is all over, and it will be all over at some point, that they want to be ready, that they want to have a couple of new great audition pieces in their repertoire ready to go. A lot of theaters are already looking now that the self-tape auditions have started up. So a lot of theaters all over the country are looking for self-tapes. And what I think is really exciting about that is now you really don't have, if everyone's looking for self-tape auditions, you don't necessarily have to be going into New York to be auditioning for a theater in Texas or a theater in Washington. So now this might actually perhaps influence a trend of freeing up where in the country actors can be living in order to be and still be submitting themselves for professional work. So I'm working with actors on that right now through Zoom, and it's been very fun.
That's great. Now, tell us a little bit about your playwriting experience, because you've also had great success in that arena.
Oh, thank you. Well, yes. As I said, when I was at Brown, I had the wonderful good fortune to work under Paula Vogel and other fabulous writing teachers. That was something about that program that particularly attracted me. I loved the fact that a lot of training programs, when you go, to go to be an actor, it's like you're an actor and that's it. And that's important. That's a big enough job. But I really loved that the Trinity Rep in Brown program was really about training really a complete artist. They wanted to give you all the tools necessary if you wanted to write or to direct or to act or to produce. And their main motto was just don't sit around waiting for the phone to ring to give you permission to do your dream and do your craft. You've got to create your own opportunities. So through that training, I got to take writing classes. I wrote, plays and had them produced there at Brown as part of festivals. And then several years ago, I started, I didn't know what a big undertaking it was at the time, but I know now, a very humbling process. My husband, Bruce Seymour, and I began collaborating on a play that has gone through, now it's been several years. It had workshop production at the Legacy Theater, which is wonderful. And also we did a workshop out at the Cleveland Public Theater, and some workshopping in New York City at the Royal Family, working with all kinds of different actors. It's so interesting always to see what a new actor with fresh eyes will bring to the script, and what questions they'll bring, and what notes they'll find in a character. Truly, that's how a play gets written. It's just with collaborating with so many wonderful, generous artists. And so, so we're continuing to work with, there's a dramaturg in New York that we've been working with for quite a while now. And hopefully, as when this passes and we're all back in the theater, the next step for us would be, which is what we were already talking about doing, would be to do a reading of the play in New York, and for backers, for producers, so that we can move out of the workshop phase and into a full production. So that's our goal.
Fabulous. Of all the roles that you play in the performing arts, what is either your most favorite or the one that's kind of calling you right now during this time?
You're talking about as far as coaching and acting, and as opposed to a specific role. It's the coaching. It really is. I working with. It truly is what I love the most. And it's almost shocking to hear myself say that, because I never thought, going back to those early days we were talking about, that there would ever be anything I loved more than acting. But, what I love about coaching is, I have to be so in the moment, and I can only respond exactly to who I'm working with and what they're doing right now. I love the thrill of that. There's so much improvisation in it. There's so much spontaneity, and it keeps it so fresh and so different every time. And for me, there's just about nothing more validating and valuable than watching someone make a breakthrough. I mean, just seeing something click for somebody, think about something in a new way, get something, that they've been wrestling with for a long time. And you see that moment, and that's just gold for me. That's really thrilling. So I'm very fortunate to be able to do it so often with so many wonderful people.
Well, thank you, Mariah. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing this wealth of information. And I encourage everybody to be in touch with her now that you have her contact information, because she is a real gem in so many ways. So thank you. And thanks for joining us. Thank you for joining us on Face to Face. We would like to thank our sponsors, Oak Tree Development and the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven, and Brad Ross for the themed music. You can follow us on legacytheaterct.org.